Okay. So we are going to talk about resource boundedness for RegAI system. And the main argument is that...
Hey, the microphone's not working.
Yeah.
Eric.
So the main argument will be that under the assumption of insufficient knowledge and resources, an AGI system would have no choice but to be designed so as to maximize its compression of resources. By resources, I mean time, and energy, and the inputs. So first we will argue that an architecture has to explicitly represent its consumption of resources. We will have to motivate the system so as to compress better its usage. And we'll see also that we will have to organize all cognitive activities around these policies that should be learned, actually, of reducing the usage of resources. As a result, we will obtain efficiency, effectiveness, and curiosity. So first, what are the fundamental resources the system has to cope with? Is the energy. Think, for example, of memory as being an instance of energy. It can be RAM, it can be hard disk. It could also be the electrical energy. We are talking about computers, after all. The second important resource we have to manage is the flow of inputs. We will assume, of course, that the agent has not an omnidirectional nor deep knowledge about his... What is that? Deep knowledge about his environment. So he will have only a very scarce subset of all possible available inputs. So it means, in fact, that the environment is supposed to be partially observable. Last is time. The time to compute things, the time to act in the world. So this is, of course, one of the fundamental resources that is traditionally absent from theoretical computer science, as we have seen yesterday. What are the scheme of compression that we are trying to achieve? First, when it comes to energy, we will aim at efficiency. What does efficiency mean in our case? It means, in fact, to do more with less, basically. What can we do about the inputs? So we can, of course, imagine a constant, steady flow of inputs, not all interesting, not all completely and exhaustively describing the environment. So a good way to minimize the flow of inputs is to learn, actually, is to build more abstract representation that, given an input, could give the system a hint about the next input, or just to identify a concept or a skill, or whatever other sort of procedural knowledge. When it comes to time, compression will lead to effectiveness, which is, in fact, to try to be on time most of the time when it comes to achieve goals. Okay, so we have been thinking about conceptual framework to unify those three sorts of compression. To improve the resource usage when it comes to energy, we will call that work. Intuitively, it means the more you do the same sort of things, the more you know about it, and the less alternatives you will consider, and therefore the less of an increase of knowledge you will need to achieve similar goals. The second one, learning this in our framework is termed play. It means, in fact, it's a proactive exploration of the world to gather the missing links between the knowledge that the system has already acquired. So this could be related, of course, to the field of active learning. And last, dream is an activity also that will, in fact, when the system is less pressured by its environment and its own goals, will dedicate some internal thinking, if you wish, to plan ahead and to exploit the data it could not exploit in the first two activities. So, what do we expect by this resource compression? Well, first, the less time we spend and the less energy we spend, it means that since the agent is more likely to be situated in a social environment, it means that more resources will be available to others. The less time and the less energy we spend, it means also, internally speaking, that we will have more time and energy to compute more tasks, be they simultaneous or subsequent. So the compression of inputs actually is clearly a learning activity, which means, in fact, decreasing the mass of knowledge required by the system to achieve this goal. It means also to generalize concept, to identify new situations and so on and so forth. It means, in fact, in fine, that the agent is more likely to be better prepared for future events. So, in our framework, all kinds of compression are driven by the progress of past compression. This comes actually from Schmidt-Huber framework called power play. Just to give you a simple idea, what do I mean by driven by the progress of past compression? It is, in fact, the first it's a proportion of the first derivative of the number of bits that you need to encode a certain type of input over time. Okay. So, yes, two main orthogonal dimensions here. We want to compress the knowledge. It means to learn new things from what we already know. Two, curious exploration. It means, in fact, that we know how things behave in a context A, context B, but we don't know it in the context C. So we have to explore actively the world, to perturbate the world in order to acquire more information. And the second dimension is architecture. What we have chosen to do actually is to re-encode known skills in a more compact and more efficient way. This drives us actually to implement it as self-compiling systems. So, what do we need by this work, play, dream? Very quickly, work means, in fact, I'm on the job, I have a set of goals and constraints to fulfill and respect. I will prioritize accordingly the action and cognitive activities that will effectively and predictably so lead to the achievement of my goals. Play, it is the proactive learning in the environment, so it means, in fact, generating goals in the environment, goals for the system that are not necessarily related to its mission. Dream is to analyze unprocessed events. Some events, for example, while at work, can be completely discarded as being irrelevant to the achievement of the goals. So, work, play, dream are not states. They are processes that are more likely to be completely intertwined. So it's not big blocks of execution time, it's finely grained. So they are actually meant to run in parallel. Yeah, I can skip that. Okay, now this work has led to a feasibility study of an existing cognitive architecture called ERA, where the knowledge is operationally constructive. It means, in fact, that everything the system actually is a hierarchical set of models that implement a control hierarchy. So it's model-based, model-driven, it's goal-driven as well. So it makes prediction and simulation from the input until the upper layers of the architecture, and from the upper layers of architecture it derives sub-goals from goals and up until achieving the issuing of commands. All right, so how do we achieve compilation there? This architecture is also completely reflective. It means that whatever it does, this constitutes an internal input. It means, in fact, that this, with the exact same mechanism as the one used to act on the environment, those internal inputs can be modeled. It means, in fact, that the system can learn his own way of thinking. And thinking here relates to the formulation of goals. So it means, in fact, that those chains of execution of piece of code can be learned, can be scrutinized for stability or instability. Since they are learned, the progress of its compression can be evaluated, and in fine, a whole chain of models like this, which are interpreted, can be replaced on the fly by a piece of C++ code. So that's the main idea. So, what is interesting in our, well, what we think is interesting in our approach is that we started from the theoretical framework from ITSIA, PowerPoint, and we contrasted it requirements-wise with our own architecture, and it turns to fit well, actually. So it means, in fact, that we didn't have to change anything in the architecture, since we operate on the basic same first principle, which are, in our case, extreme plasticity in knowledge representation and extreme plasticity and parallelism in knowledge execution. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So we have some time for questions. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question on first slides. So you distinguish resource consumption on, yeah, the next one probably. Yeah, so you consider energy, you preserve energy, you preserve inputs, you preserve time. I would argue that saving on input effectively can be considered as saving on energy and time, because if you are doing learning, you are compressing the information, and so compressing the information could save the energy and time at the same time. Like if you have longer inference chain, then compressing the inference chain, you just make shorter reaction time and you save on time. And also if you eliminate extra memory cells during compression of inputs, you also save on resource spending to feed these memory cells. So why do you think input is separate line here? Thank you.
Okay. Right. So first, what you mentioned, like compressing a chain of inference. In our case, this is what we call self-compilation. It does not bring you more knowledge about what you are doing. It just allows you to do it faster. And this is related to the compression of the usage of time. Why did we put this input as a separate entity here? What we mean here is not that we are compressing the size to represent an input. It's not that. It is in fact that we are compressing the reaction of the system when it faces an input like this. So the input in this line here means more about the semantics of the word. So what I meant here by learning is to learn the semantics of the word, not to learn how to represent better. This is the third line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Then we go on to the last paper by Bissold and Robert. And Bissold, first author, is here to present this paper. Looks like we may get 10 minutes or so in the end if we steal